This upcoming April 2nd and 3rd is the second annual Miami Valley All-Conference Challenge created by Southwest Ohio Full Court Press. This event puts conference versus conference and star versus star from the Miami Valley and its surrounding areas. With me tonight are event creators Tony Peters and Seth Kime. Be sure to catch all the action here with MVCC and watch live on our YouTube channel, Miami Valley CC. Tony, Seth, welcome. I'm glad to be part of this event for the second year in a row. Last year it was a phenomenal event. All the games were close and competitive. So tell me how about this event kind of came about.
Well, last year, Jared, when COVID hit, we had started talking between ourselves about how a lot of the recruiting things that were going on, dead periods and things were being extended. It really put a dampening on recruiting, especially for smaller schools, less well-known players. Obviously, your kids that are D1 sort of recruits are pretty well known. And Tony and I had been thinking about doing an event for some time, and ultimately just decided that, if we could get it done last year with COVID and everything, that it would be the right time to do it, just to try to serve as many of those kids as we could, give them another chance to be seen, and utilize the technology that we have at our hands to be able to stream some things, get some kids seen. So we just kind of put our heads together, started asking questions around about gyms and where we could possibly hold it, what we needed to do, and eventually just made it happen. Just kind of spur of the moment, made a decision, and went for it.
And you talked about the COVID struggles this year. You're adding the girls. So what kind of challenges has that adding a whole second day of games?
Well, it kind of, obviously the majority of the guys we know are on the boys' side, so now we're trying to get into a realm that we're not as familiar with. So that was really one of the biggest things right off the bat was, okay, we got to figure out which girls should be in this event. Because like Seth said, the Division I guys and girls, they get a lot of the reputation, a lot of the exposure, but the smaller known girls in the smaller schools, they're not going to know that. So it took a lot just to figure out kind of what girls would be willing and able to play in it. So kind of like what we did with the boys, like he said, once we started to reach out to the people that know the girls a little better than us, we were able to kind of get a good roster going. And we have a really good field this year. We feel like obviously we'll want to build on it as time goes on and as this event grows, but I'd say just getting them was really the hardest part.
And it's at Bethel for the second year in a row. What about Bethel stood out to you guys?
For us, it was had to do with proximity. It's a little bit north for some of the Dayton schools, especially farther down south here, like Miamisburg, Springboro, even out to like Waynesville type kids. It's a little bit further. But if we had done it down here, it'd be a little bit farther south for some of the schools like Botkins or Sydney, some of the northern schools. And Bethel is up north. Part of it that came into it was their athletic staff. And their AD was just very opening, very welcoming, really excited about the possibility of hosting the event. Mm-hmm. And he took a leap of faith with us last year, really helped us out, providing us with some internal resources at Bethel that we were able to leverage to put on a really good event last year. And so we decided to stick with them and really, honor that commitment that they made to us last year, go back to Bethel. The gym's fantastic. It's got a lot of seating. They've got a beautiful facility, and they even have a second practice gym right off of the main gym that allows us to keep the event rolling fluidly, because we can get the teams, as one team's playing, the next game of teams can arrive and they can go into the practice gym, warm up, kind of get familiar with each other in a space that's conducive for that, and then be able to flow right out of the court when it's time for their game. I just made that really advantageous.
Now, your event, it's not an all-star event like we've seen from other schools. How is this one different?
It really focuses more on the recruiting than the entertainment side. We're not really going out there talking about, you can see Laurent Rice and Gabe Cups play against each other. It really focuses on the kids that don't get as much exposure. Now, obviously, we still have some bigger name players, Lane Sarver with Tri-Village, fresh off the run that they just made the state finals. But even then, him coming from a smaller school, some of his teammates as well, they don't get that opportunity. So we really, when we put the event together, wanted to focus on the kids and the recruitment side of it, versus trying to make money and make it more of like an entertainment side of thing.
And that's part of the reason that we did it in the conference challenge format, the way we format it, instead of just hand-picking, the top kids from the entire area and fielding 2 teams, having a multi-layered event where we can kind of leverage that conference passion and pride behind it, ultimately then makes for a better on-the-court product. We had a lot of people talk last year about how it wasn't just super flashy and going for dunks and stuff and the cool play, which we certainly had a lot of.
Oh, yeah.
But we had kids that were getting back on defense, diving on the floor in what's considered an all-star game. One, I think, speaks to just the format with the conference. There's that rivalry. There's a little bit of bragging rights involved. But it also plays to that aspect of some of those kids that they're playing and they know that this might be their only opportunity this year where they've got actual college coaches on a video or in a gym. They're paying attention and they're on the court playing. So there's a little bit more of a self-pride thing there and a want to put your best foot forward. And I think expanding that field out instead of just, the top Division I prospects, for college, getting kids that, might be looking for even just a D3 offer or NAIA or JUCO offer. I mean, you name it. I think that plays a huge factor into it and why this is different than other All-Star events.
Now, you talked about conferences besides GWalk and Southwest Buckeye League and Miami Valley. What other conferences are we going to see?
I'd see if I can remember all 12 of them. There's 12 total that we technically cover. Some of the more lesser known ones, I guess, the Central Buckeye Conference, which kind of covers more the Springfield and Tecumseh, New Carlisle area.
Okay.
We got the Metro Buckeye Conference, which is a lot of the smaller schools. Dayton Christian comes out of there. Let's see, Middletown Christian. We got the Three Rivers Conference, the Western Ohio Athletic Conference, WOAX, where Tri-Village comes from, the TRC, you got Troy Christian, Miami East, Northridge, schools of that nature.
The SCAL teams up north.
Yeah, the Shelby County Athletic League is another one we have. The MAC is probably the farthest one, I'd say. That's, for those that may not know, you're talking Marion local, New Bremen, Versailles. That team, we have a couple other players that wanted an opportunity to play that don't come from the MAC that are going to fill in as well. But really, it's just if any conferences that fall into the Miami Valley, there's again 12 total. Every team will have a representative, at least one representative from the conference on that team.
And how do you expect this year? I mean, the COVID restrictions are gone, so are we going to see a fuller gym this year?
I think absolutely. The way we did it last year is when kids registered, we gave them 2 of the allotted tickets for parents to be able to come as part of registration, knowing we had gym capacity limits and wanted them to have family and friends there. And I think when all was said and done, there were maybe 150 tickets left, and those got eaten up by family and friends almost immediately, I think same day that we released them. And so there were even just a lot of family and friends that weren't able to come just due to capacity limits. And this year, we don't have those. So we're going to get packed gyms with a lot of fans rolling in and fluidly throughout the day, which is the other cool thing is you get this moving dynamic of different fans. It's kind of like a state tournament where you get like fans loaded in from each side, each game, and then some stay, some trickle out, and then you reload again. New faces, new energy. It keeps the vibes high all day long, I think.
And to that point too, I mean, like Seth said, the family and friends were a lot of it, but even just, I think this year that more communities will come out. I know with the Shelby County schools, there's been a couple of the boys coaches that have been talking about wanting to bring their teams or some of their fans to watch the girls game the day before, just because they all support each other and they want to be there for each other. And you get that a lot, especially with the small towns, and that's what I really love about it as well, is I think we'll be able to get a lot of good communities in there. And like Seth said, especially it's like almost a revolving door of getting different people in there at different times.
Now, adding the girls side, what challenges did you come from adding the girls this year?
I think some of it Tony alluded to earlier when it was just in the selection process. We're so tied into the boys side of things, just because it's the 2 of us that do what we do with SWO. It was finding the right girls to bring the teams together. But then finding some of the coaches is a little more difficult just because we're not as plugged in. So we relied on some help from some individuals around the area that know the girls game a little bit better, helped us fill those blank spots where we had them. But yeah, I think that was the main challenge on that side. I don't know if you've got more.
No, that really was it. And again, with AAU, how AAU kind of has become a priority to a lot of people. A lot of people prioritize that over an event like this, which is fair. Everyone is allowed to kind of decide the route they want to go. But I try to question people and let them know that, hey, this event, you're looking at maybe 25, 30 coaches going to be watching this at any time, whereas an AAU event, with it being not a live NCAA live period, the coaches can't even come out, some of them. So, that's been another one, was just trying to get the right girls that want to be there versus, the ones that just kind of put it to the side that, oh, it's just another all-star event, or the misconception that that's all we're all about or something.
Well, and then oddly enough, part of the reason that we're starting the girls' side of it a little earlier is it's prom season. We had some girls initially that brought up, if it was later in the day, we got to get ready for prom and things like that. Perfectly fine. I mean, heck, especially for girls, junior, senior prom, that's a big deal. Not that it's not for the guys, but I think the girls are a little more inclined to, make that a big day. And so that's why we kind of pushed the timeline back a little bit on that side. I don't know how many were affected by that, but there were a fair number when we first started sending out invitations and things that made us take a second look at the time frames and just make adjustments.
Now, the girls' day, it's not all, you don't have all 12 conferences for that, do you?
No, every conference is represented, but just due to the numbers, we ended up trying to combine the teams. And with that, it wasn't really as much on the numbers. It was more of just, okay, how do we make these teams as competitive as possible so that when they go on the floor, we're not getting, a massive blowout. Because that's the last thing we want. We don't want a team out there being like, well, why did I come here and lose by 30? We want it to be a competitive game, guys or girls playing good defensive basketball, making plays, trying to win, trying to do the best they can. So, but every conference is represented this year, it's a start for us. Obviously, next year we'd like it to be entire teams of conferences like we do for the boys, but it's baby steps.
Yeah. Now, going in to the game, I mean, how does picking the coach for a conference work?
There's some regulations we have to follow. So on the boys' side or girls, to have a current varsity coach, if there's a player on their team that can't be during the no contact period, so once the season ends, the coach has 30 days where they're not allowed to communicate with the players. So that makes it a challenge because a lot of the coaches want to coach their players again or for one last time, but we just can't make that work sometimes. So we depend on volunteers because there are quite a few people that aren't varsity coaches that are on the AAU scene that they want to volunteer their time and work with these different players. So on the girls and boys side, we're seeing a lot of that at this point. It's not necessarily a varsity coach, but more just someone with a basketball mindset or basketball coaching experience that wants to be a part of the event.
Yeah, like last year you guys had Joey Gruden, I think, coached one of the boys' teams.
Correct.
Yeah. Or we had even former alumni of schools that are still plugged in, are still around their various high schools that are involved. Will get involved sometimes. So it's, yeah.
Caleb South is, I think, who he's, and this year, actually, it's funny that I say all that because Jacob Plyman from Botkins is actually going to coach the Shelby County team versus playing. So he'll be getting his coaching debut at the Miami Valley All-Conference Challenge. So could be a start of a good career for him after he's done playing at Tiffin. But again, it's just getting the right people that want to be there, want to give back to the kids, and just be involved in the game.
Now, what do you guys expect from this year?
I think we expect very much what we had last year. Last year we had a really good turnout. Players were excited when they were walking in. They were kind of unsure what it was going to be at first, but I think after the first game got going and the second waves came in, I think the players saw the product and the effort that was put out on the court, and then having that time before the games kind of allowed them to get acclimated with each other a little bit, and then ultimately put a good product on the court. I think last year we had 5 games last year.
5, yeah.
And I think all but one of them came down to a single possession game, with one of them even going to overtime. So it was, for an all-star event to be that competitive, that close, I think just speaks to the types of kids that we've tried to invite to come participate, and just the sort of the reasoning behind why we wanted to do this in the first place. And being able to have the kids exemplify that. So I expect more of that this year. I expect the boys' side to grow a lot in terms of how many people are there. We saw it this year a little bit where, people were reaching out to us before we even put anything out this year. Like, you guys doing this again? I'd love to play, So the girls' side's been a little more work this year. Hopefully, that gains, some sight throughout the community, and then next year it'll be the same thing. We'll have girls reaching out like, hey, I heard about this event last year. You doing it again? Would love to play. That's exciting for us.
Now, what do you think you guys have improved from last year to make this year even better? If there was anything that you really could have improved on?
I'm not quite sure yet because we're not there. I think last year went so well. I mean, the registration process is the same. I think working, one of the things that we did was come to you guys to try to just expand our reach in terms of broadcasting and who's able to view it and just spread the word more. I think if anything, that's probably one of the biggest strides that we've made, is just in the reach that we've been able to have with it.
I would say
certainly.
I would say too, I think just putting the rosters together, because last year, like as Seth alluded to, the one game that wasn't a close one was the MVL versus the GWAC, and a lot of that was because the GWAC, we just didn't have the same kind of level players as was on the MVL. I think like out of the 8 players on the MVL, all of them made MVL, all league team, and the GWAC, just those guys weren't all GWAC. So this year, I know when we were putting the rosters together, we did try to have an emphasis on, okay, let's try to get at least 1 or 2 bigger names to go with, the other more unknown, like the whole reason why we did behind the event. Just to, not really for the vibe per se, but just more to keep it as competitive as possible. Because again, the coaches don't want to see a blowout, the players don't want to be a part of a blowout. So I think just trying to make the rosters as competitive as possible and keep them close together so that we can avoid as many, blowouts per se as possible.
And like you said last year, that all the games were competitive and all that. I mean, I think there was a buzzer beater last year.
There was a buzzer beater. There was an overtime game. We got down to where we didn't think we were going to be needing to really come down to foul shots. One of the things we did was just fouls were just side out of bounds unless it was a shooting foul. But we didn't really anticipate it being so competitive to where teams were playing the foul game at the end, where they were intentionally they were doing just grab them around the arms to send them to the line, and we weren't keeping track of total numbers of fouls or anything like that. So we had to kind of roll on the fly with that a little bit. I think some of that stuff we're a little more prepared for this year. I think last year, just kind of in the middle of the game, we're like, we got to do something about it. So we decided that with I think under 2 minutes or so, we'll do a foul. We'll send people to the line for a 1-and-1. And just keep it at 1-and-1 until the end of the game. Adds a little more intrigue to it. So some of that stuff certainly we've tweaked to try to improve upon it. I'm sure we'll be adjusting on the fly again this year, depending on what comes up.
Now you talked about under 2 and all that. What is the rules format for this event?
So it'll be two 20-minute halves, running clock until under 5 minutes. Once it gets under 5 minutes, we'll stop it on dead balls, fouls, etc. Because again, we do want to keep that competitive nature to it. So if it is a close game, why not let's play it out in a way it would be in a regular game. So they'll play the 40 minutes total. With subbing, we'll have a coach there that's going to obviously be fair with the subbing. Again, we're not really having these teams go out there, playing players in a way that you're trying to win. Everyone's getting a chance to go out there and show what they can do. But it'll be, again, 6 games just like that, with a small break in between with that. And with the fouls, we're still tweaking a few things with the fouls, just because, again, we didn't think we were going to get it last year. Now that we saw that we had it, now we have to envision not just that, but any other scenario on top of that. Yeah. But we'll probably have something where, same thing as we did last year, where under 2 minutes we'll go to 1-and-1 on fouls, or something else we'll figure out.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and timeouts, I think we did 2 timeouts a half. And then in overtime, we gave each of the coaches an additional timeout. I think we got to the point last year where after the end of the first OT, when we were coming down to it, we were discussing what we would do about additional OTs, because we didn't just want to leave it undecided and tied, because you want to see the end of a game. Everybody wants the W at that point. So we didn't know if it was going to come down to a tip and sudden death, or it probably would have been an Elam ending. In that case. And I think this year for overtime, we'll probably do some sort of an Elam ending when they're tied. We'll do a tip again, and just add 7 to the total at that point, or 7 or 8 to the total.
8, yeah.
And first one there will be the winners. I think that'll be a little more expeditious than another 5 minutes or so. But just small tweaks like that ultimately will improve everything as well.
Now, you talked about college coaches. Was there a lot last year in person, or was it more watching online?
The majority of it was online, just because we like the Division 1s and Division 2s. A lot of them, the D1s, they're not even allowed to come out unless it's a live period. D2s, a little more lenient, but still not as much. I want to say we had about 10 coaches total last year that came in person, mainly at the
NAI
D3
D3 level.
I know, like Miami Hamilton, they don't fall into any of those, but they're one of the extension colleges. So like they had their coach come out. We had 2 prep schools come out as well that were looking at some of the unsigned seniors. So in between 10 to 15, I'd say total is what we had in person. But
on the live stream, I mean, we had, how many different coaches did we have request links?
We had about 45 to 50 last year. Like Ohio State, UD, Wright State were all on the live stream watching it. And there's some D2s. I think Walsh was on there last year.
OU, I think, was on there.
OU, I think I think you're right. So
there were some of the bigger area teams, which surprised us initially, and then it just kind of grew from there. It was pretty exciting.
Now, did that event lead to any of the unsigned seniors getting an offer to go to a prep school?
We did have one. Cole Todd from Waynesville last year got an offer to Miami Hamilton as a result of the event, which for Seth and I mean, we kind of went into the event and said if one kid gets a scholarship offer out of it, it was a success to us. So when that happened, I mean, that was just such a special moment for us. And
especially because we knew it was directly an impact of what their coach saw on the court with Cole. Others may have come from that or furthered offers. I know a number of the kids that played did end up playing on some of the prep schools that were in attendance, and other kids that had been unsigned before but then ultimately made decisions that where coaches were in attendance. We didn't find out if there was anything that directly came of that other than the one we did have confirmed. But still, that was really exciting.
So when matching up the conference versus conference, do you take the rivalry aspect? Like if 2 conferences really go at each other during the regular season, do you try to keep that in the same line, or do you kind of keep, like, I'm not saying talent level, but like school size competition in mind?
I think it's more school size than the rivalry, just because like we don't want necessarily the MBC playing the GWalk, just because the talent level would be that deep a discrepancy. I think last year we tried that with the MVL and GWalk, and again, if we can do that, we will.
That was a fun one though, just because the split had just happened, and you could tell the MVL kids wanted it. They felt like they had something to prove against the GWalk schools,
and especially when it got close to the end of the game, they started piling it on there, and
a little bit, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, this year I know we got the GCL. GCL beat the Dayton City League last year, which a lot of people I think thought was going to be the other way around, just because the talent we had on that DCL team. So this year we're going to put the GCL up against the GWalk, and we obviously amp the GWalk up a little more than what they were a year ago. So I expect that to be, because that's really 2 of the most well-known conferences, leagues in the area, as well as like the MVL and the DCL. So we try to keep it. I think it's more of the size aspect. We try to keep fair versus the talent or the rivalries, if possible.
Yeah.
So what kind of players? I mean, you can go in any order of the conference, but I mean, what top players from each conference are we looking at in this event?
No.
I didn't know if you wanted to share. Handled a lot of the rosters.
GWalk, we got Anthony Johnson and Desan Doucette, both from Fairmont, coming in. Adam Duvall will be back again from Beaver Creek. Jackson McGowan from Miamisburg. MVL, we've got, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. couple first team and second team league all leaguers. I remember I've just drawn blanks on names, unfortunately. I know Dayton City League, Anton Allen from Dunbar is one of the bigger ones we've got. GCL is I'm most excited for. Evan Dickey from CJ, Sean McKeetrick from Carroll, a couple other Fenwick kids, AJ Lean and Anthony Ruffalo from Alter, assuming AAU doesn't get in the way. They're supposed to be there.
Swivel, you've got some of the kids from Oakwood.
Maxwell's one of them.
Maxwell's one of them, but also Keon Wright and Jack Epley. Who else from Swivel?
Josh Mitchell from Waynesville is on that team. Gabe Pavlock from Bellbrook.
Yep.
There's some from that's all on the East Division, the West Division with like Carlisle and Madison. I think Carlisle had a player in there. Let's see. The TRC, or Three Rivers Conference, I know Wesley Enos and Parker Penrod from Troy Christian and Miami East are playing in the event. Central Buckeye Conference, Zion Crow. He not as well known around here, I think, because he's from Springfield, but really good player up there, one of the best players in that conference. He'll be coming down, or he'll be going over to Bethel to compete in the event. The MAC, Jaden Litton for sales, Jack Napke from Marion Local, kind of an unknown name as well.
Scal, I think originally both of the Plyman brothers, I think, had committed to play. Jake, just with some of his recruiting, has got some limits on the amount of all-star type games that he can play in, but he's going to coach them. His brother Cardo will be on the team. Who else from up there?
McCain Finkenbein
from Anna.
Caleb Maurer from Fort Loramie. The sharpshooter himself, Jamison Meyer, who is one
from Botkins.
From Botkins, yeah. So that Shelby County team will be very competitive as well. But again, we try to get a good balance of like all leaguers that we know these guys can play, and they're going to be able to bring that competitiveness and mix them with those guys that just maybe don't get the recognition. So I am excited for this year. I think that the field's definitely a lot more competitive than what we saw a year ago.
Which is saying something considering the results from last year.
Exactly.
And on the girls' side, I mean, if you want to run down any of those conference players real quick?
I think the biggest one is Riley Rissmiller from Coldwater. If you look like statistically, she had some of the best stats coming out of the MAC. She's going to play in the event. She's got a lot of offers from Division I schools. I know Michigan, Pittsburgh. I feel like Ohio State was on there. Dayton was on there as well. She's by far, I think, the best prospect we've got coming.
I think overall, boys and girls, in terms of just high level interest, I mean, she's one of the top ones.
100%.
Completely.
100%. And then I know like Carmen, I'm going to butcher her last name. I think it's Huker from Botkins. From Botkins. She's going to be coming down and playing as well. The girls I don't have as much memorized, just because again because we don't have as much of a pulse on it. It's harder to remember those names right off the bat. But I know like you were helping me out with some of the GWalk girls. So I know we had like Molly or Megan Scott. I forget what her first name was.
Scott
Molly
from Centerville.
Scott from Centerville. Like I know she's playing in it. We had someone from Fairmont as well. I'm drawing a blank on her name, but
Kenzie Rourke.
That's who it was. Yep, that's why I asked you for the help. But yeah, that's some of the bigger names I'd say we got coming on the girls' side.
All right. Any other final thoughts?
No, just that we're really excited. We're excited to have MVCC on board to help us out with the broadcasting side of things and helping get the event out. Just in terms of marketing it ahead of time, with talking to you today, and then just day of, we're really excited about the reach that we can get, and to try to share this event out there, and hopefully we come away with some kids that end up with some offers. That'd be, that's our goal. That's what we set out to do initially. We got one last year. We're hoping for at least two this year. So just try to keep improving, even incrementally at that. We're super excited. I think Bethel's going to be a pretty packed house next Saturday and Sunday, the 2nd and the 3rd. I know we're really looking forward to it, and I think we've got you on board calling some games for us.
Yeah, I'm going to come back again. That was definitely fun.
That's awesome.
Now, is there a link or anywhere people can buy tickets, or is it at the door?
Yep, we'll have that up here in the next couple of days. We're just finalizing some things with, it's an event website that does ticketing and everything for us. So when we have that, we'll post that out on our website, on our Twitter page. We'll certainly share that with you guys so you guys can share that out. But yeah, we'll get that shared out and make sure you guys have it.
What's your guys' Twitter and website?
SWOFCP. So it's just Southwest Ohio Full Court Press, just the first letters of those. Very simple and easy.
That's for Instagram and Twitter both.
All right.
Instagram, Twitter, website, yep, swofcp.com, or at swofcp for Twitter and Instagram.
All right.
Yep.
Don't forget, April 2nd and 3rd, the Miami Valley All-Conference Challenge will be live on our YouTube, Miami Valley CC. Guys, thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us, Jared.